Me too.
That one. Well, you probably don't recognize that ugly, big, tall guy with a dog on his head. It's called a sabaka hat, which means dog in Russian. So we went to Russia in 1992 with our two daughters. They were 5 and 6 at the time, and everybody thought we were nuts, including our pastor. And so, not pastor here, but our pastor in Shelby. And the thing that we were talking about, Luke had asked us to tell a few stories, but I'm a storyteller. I love to tell stories because it's the testimony of what the Lord has done. And so when we got the call, we were sitting in a church just like this, about the same size, in Shelby. And we didn't know anything about missions. We had heard from a couple of other missionaries. Their slideshow, anybody remember the old slideshows? They were really slides, little square things that had plastic and you shine the light through. And those were carousel slideshow projectors. Those are ancient now. And so we saw that. We saw the hungry, the sick, and the dying in Africa. And we thought, wow, that could be us someday. That's all we thought. We didn't really give it a whole lot of time. Some years later, our church was part of a fellowship of churches, and we were at a pastor's conference, and one of the pastors and his wife were giving up their church to move to Russia, the former Soviet Union, with an organization called Calvary International. Well, during that service, that meeting, they raised all their support. Other pastors were in the room saying, I'll do 50 a month, I'll do 100 a month, I'll do whatever. It was really exciting. So I was the designated driver. Anytime we went as men from the church, I always drove the church van. That was one of my other duties. What Nancy said, we always serve at the pleasure. Kind of like serving the president. They always say, I serve at the pleasure. Well, we serve at the pleasure of Jesus. Whatever he wants us to do, we do, okay? So I was driving down the road, coming back from the pastor's conference, and I hear the voice of the Lord. I had the radio on. You remember the Hosanna cassette tapes? Okay, that's what I was listening to. And everybody, all the other men were asleep, of course. It was late at night. And I was minding my own business, and the Lord said, I want you to go to Russia. I'm like, I'm not going to Russia. I got 2 little girls. They hate Americans. You remember that, right? That was during the days of the movie called The Russians Are Coming and Red Dawn and all this kind of stuff where they're out to kill us. Like Nancy said, we're all hiding under the desk for nuclear fallout drills. Okay? We don't do that anymore. Praise God. But I'm thinking I'm going down the road, so doing that, I heard that voice, and I turned the music up. I'm serious. I did that. I was avoiding the voice of the Lord on purpose. So I ride down the road another hour, and I hear it again. I want you to go to Russia. That's all he said. So I'm thinking, okay, this is for real. So I turned the music off, and I said, Lord, I cannot do this. They hate Americans. They stand in line for food. I have 2 little girls. It's cold. I went down the list. These are the reasons why I can't go. And we're not. I turned the music back on. Minding my own business. I got all the way home. Laying in the bed. It was after midnight. She's asleep. I'm laying there, road noise, wide awake. Can't go to sleep. He did it again. I want you to go to Russia. I said, all right. Obviously, you're not going to leave me alone. I said, here's the deal. I figured in my mind, you know how you do, if Gideon could do it, I can do it too. So I fleeced the Lord. So I said, here's the deal. If you will convince my wife without me saying anything, then I'll go. Okay, that was Saturday night, Sunday morning. So that next day, Sunday morning, we're at church in the nursery. It's our turn, rotation. Y'all do that here? So it worked for us. We had one baby in the nursery. Very unusual. The baby slept the whole time. And the intercom speaker was broke. So we couldn't hear what was being said in the service, right? So we didn't know what was going on. We're in there. All we got time to do is look at each other and talk. Imagine that, husband and wife. Now you got to talk. So we're sitting there, and she goes, honey, I had a dream that we moved to Russia as missionaries. I'm like, oh, crap. Excuse my French, but I said, well, I guess I better tell you what happened to me on the way home last night. The Lord said, I want you to go to Russia. He says, well, I guess we got to go. Just like that. And then the conversation went from there to how do we go? Who do we talk to? How is this going to work? We're broke. You know, she's teaching school in the church, making $150 a week. My salary at the church, now you'll love this, Pastor Luke. I had Tim's blessing box on the stage, on the platform. It was written on the front, Tim's blessing box. I had an offering box. That's where my salary came from. So God was teaching us to live by faith, and we didn't even know it. He was teaching us to be missionaries. We didn't even know what we were doing. So we get out of the nursery. Bless her heart, the lady came to get her baby. She was up for prayer, and she was the last one to leave the church. And so we had to stay there the whole time, waiting. We get out, and normally during those days, we would be the ones picking up the trash left behind in the pews and locking up at the end of the day. And so we were doing that, and I get back to the podium, and of course I was always eager to look in my blessing box to see what was left for me there. You know? that was either really good or really bad, okay? And so seriously, it was definitely a walk of faith. And so there was a ledger pad with 30 names on it. It said Russia trip, May, $1,500, okay? We didn't have $1,500, all right? And so I was sitting here thinking about what I was going to share, and we talked about it, but this was really in my mind there. And so this was the beginning of us becoming missionaries. We looked at each other, we said, well, one of us obviously needs to go on a scouting trip. If we're going to move our family, one of us needs to go check it out because we don't know what we're getting into, all right? So I put my name on the bottom of the list, took it to the pastor's study, locked the door behind me. He doesn't come in on Monday, so that thing's still sitting back there. Nobody knows it's there. Nobody knows we're on the list. Monday afternoon, she comes and says, one of the ladies is picking up her son. She wants to talk to us. And she comes in, she says, well, my husband and I, we signed up to go to Russia, and we got home last night, and the Lord said, you can't go, but send Tim. I'm serious. She said, do you want to go? And we looked at each other and started crying, you know. Yes, we do. I signed up. And she wrote a check for $1,500 on the spot. I was the only one on the list that had the money to go. Well, that made me the team leader, you know. Ding, another job. So we borrowed somebody's video camera, or I did, went 10 days on a Russia trip. All the Russians were gravitating to me like I was somebody special. I had a beard. That was my specialty. So I looked Russian, kind of, sort of. And so they thought I could speak Russian. And they were just, you know, and I didn't know anything from anything. I couldn't respond. I'm like, why are these people talking to me? And so at the very last night crusade, we're in a soccer field, soccer stadium. Pastor preaches. You know, it's great. Everybody raises their hand, you know, to get saved, get a Bible and all that. We saw that over and over and over again, but it wasn't real. You know, most of those people were just raising their hand because they were told to raise their hand. I mean, it's the former Soviet Union. They just came out of communism. They're used to responding to whatever somebody says. All right? So we're getting on the bus. I'm the last one because I'm the team leader, so I'm making sure everybody's on the bus. There's no problems. The interpreter calls me to the back of the bus to my pastor. I'm like, oh, Lord, somebody's done something really stupid. You know, I mean, that's what I was thinking. She wants to talk to me. I'm the team leader. I get back there and sit down, and pastor said, she really needs to talk to you. She's been waiting the whole time. I'm like, what in the world? She says, 2 months ago, before y'all came, I had a dream. I dreamed that you, me, and your family moved to Russia as missionaries and came to my house and got my husband, who's a communist, and my 2 children, son and daughter, born again, and water baptized them in our bathtub. She had this dream. She recognized me from the dream, Luke. Now, you think about that. Okay, is that confirmation or what? All right. So then, obviously, now my pastor's thinking, yeah, you're called to go to Russia. So speed up, and we get to Russia. And, I mean, this happened in May of 1992, where we were confirmed that we were supposed to go to Russia. We found out about Calvary International while we were in Russia, while I was in Russia. And I said, honey, we got to join them. They're awesome. I met their team there. The only way we could get there is to go to Jacksonville for 5 days of training, 5 days of training to move your family across the planet to former Soviet Union for God knows how long. 5 days of training, that's all you get, all right? And then they slap you on the back and say, don't forget to write. And so that's what it felt like, honestly. And so that was in May. We went to Calvary. The next month in June was their next opportunity to join. We went through the 5 days of training. We're sitting there joining. I'm looking around at all the people. There was 40-something people in our class. Most of them were moving to Russia as missionaries. I'm like, we don't measure up. They're going to deny us. Remember that? They're not going to want us to go, Luke. We didn't feel adequate. We didn't feel prepared. We didn't feel enough. I'm listening to people going to Bible school. I've never been to Bible school. I know that shocks you. But I've started 3 Bible schools. Seriously, in Russia. 2 of them are still going. So we're thinking we don't have what it takes. And they're looking for warm bodies. So it didn't matter what we had. We're going to get to go whether we qualify or not. And so they wanted us to go. And they said, well, when do you think you're supposed to leave? You know, you're going to Russia. And we said October 3rd. And they said, well, that's good. That's a year and 4 months to raise your money. I'm like, no, this October 3rd. They go, that's impossible. You realize that's only a few months away. You've never been missionaries. How are you going to raise your support? We said, well, you know, this isn't our first rodeo. We've moved a few times. We've heard God's voice. And, you know, you told us to pray, and that's what we keep hearing. So, I mean, but we'll keep praying. And if it doesn't happen, we'll be okay with that. October 3rd at midnight, we were moving into our apartment in Russia, in Moscow. God did it, you know. And when we were there, our youngest daughter, Liza, she was having petite mal seizures every single night. She was on anticonvulsant medication. We were the least likely candidates to be missionaries in Russia, if you look at the natural. We had issues. We fought like cats and dogs in our marriage. I know that shocks you too. We're madly in love now, but man, we almost killed each other the first 15 years. And so she's smiling, laughing, because she knows it's true. And so, as I said, we were the least likely candidates. But God, we showed up, and we were too far away. What time is it? Am I doing okay? Yeah. Keep me going. You got to, you know, tell me. Okay. She always does this with her ear when I'm going long. And so, okay, so we arrive in Moscow, and, well, thank you. I'm going to tell more. So we get to Moscow, move into our apartment. It's dark, midnight. We don't know where in Moscow we are. We don't know where the rest of the team is. All we know is it's dark. There's no light in the elevator. It smells like human waste. And, yeah, it was bad. And I'm thinking the whole time, what in the world have I done? I have moved my children and my sweet wife halfway across the planet to a place where We don't know what's going on. We didn't speak the language. We know, okay, where's the bathroom? How much does this cost? Okay, that's what we knew, basically. And so the next day, it's snowing sideways. The wind is blowing, and it's cold, and it's snowing hard. And she asked me to go get milk. Yes, ma'am. You see how mean she was? I'm telling you. Oh, my gosh. All we had was cereal. And you go to open the refrigerator, and the roaches come out because there's no food. We thought we had been done dirty by our own team. We had no furniture. We were in an apartment, hadn't been cleaned. They were just busy, okay? We just, it just didn't work to our schedule. All right? So, and my poor little daughter's sick. So I get my coat on. I go out in the blinding snow because she wants milk. It's Sunday, okay? In Russian, that's Voskresenia, which means Resurrection Day. That means everything's closed, all right? So I'm walking and walking and walking, going down the street. I find a kiosk. You know what a kiosk is? That's about a 6 foot by 6 foot little shack with a few things like cigarettes, liquor, a couple other things, and boxed Parmalat milk. You know what that means? UHT, ultra high temperature. It'll last till Jesus comes, That stuff it does not taste like milk at all. It tastes like white water, okay? I'm just being honest here. So it's liquid when I bought it. By the time I get back to the apartment, it is a brick of ice. I'm dead serious. And I feel like a brick of ice too. So I get up there, I'm doing my husbandly duty. I go get milk, and I hand it to her gladly. She says, "What is this?" I'm like, "That's what I just walked 2 miles in the snow for, She said, "This isn't milk." I'm like, "Well, that's all they had." And that became the daily routine with me going out and trying to find stuff. Don't know what the heck I'm doing. She sends me out with a list of stuff, and I'm come back with a wooden spoon. All right? You really. And we're over there, thinking we're missionaries. And so the second week we're there, God puts me on a train with our team leader who invites me to a pastor's conference in the middle of nowhere, Samara, which is where we moved to a year later because God said. And she's left behind with our 2 daughters in Moscow by herself to buy groceries, to take care of the kids, and I'm on a train. And so that became the routine. The first year in Russia, I was on a train every 2 weeks, for 2 weeks. She didn't know where I was going. Y'all think about this. No cell phone, no internet. Al Gore hadn't invented it yet. So then there was no way to get in touch with me. She didn't know where I was or if I'd come back. We did this over and over and over. I learned to speak Russian on the train. 6 months of that, I was really good at Russian. She was learning to speak Russian by our Armenian neighbor. So she had an Armenian accent with her Russian. It was quite comical. And God, you see this right here. We're out in the country. That's Pastor Sasha, his family. The girl in pink, that's my little Liza. The one in the blue on the right, the taller child, that's Natalie. We did not know this, but we named them Russian names. Natasha, Elizabeth, okay? And so it was really cool how God met us there. He was waiting for us when we got off the plane. Now, last thing I want to tell you, because she just tugged her ear. So, it's fun. I depend on it now because I can just tell stories over and over. I got tons of them. So, I was out about, a month. We were out shopping. We came back, and our apartment door was open. wide open. I'm like, oh, great. Somebody has broke in our apartment, and they're stealing all of our nothing. You know, literally, we had nothing. And so we go in, and it's the landlady and her daughter, and they were just in there getting a book or something, and they were on their way out as we were going in. We met, her broken English and our broken Russian at the time. We figured out she just happened to be the foremost neurologist in all the former Soviet Union, whose specialty was, guess what? Early childhood epileptic disorders. We were in her house. Oh man, I tell you what, that will break you, because she offered to see our child for free, retest her, get her off of her anticonvulsant medication using homeopathics, and she made a world of difference in our lives. And then the Lord allowed us to lead her whole family to Christ. Okay? I'm just telling you, God set us up. You've heard of the great setup. That's what we walked into, the great setup. God will set you up when you least expect it. All you have to do, though, as Nancy said, is be faithful and obedient. That was our only thing that we knew how to do. We didn't have credentials that made us what we were supposed to be. We just had a little bit of faith. I say a little bit of faith. We were just getting started. And we had good obedience because we learned obedience in our church, just like this. We listened to our pastor. We believed what he taught us because it was the Word of God. We studied to show ourselves approved, okay? We got involved in everything in the church that there was to be involved in. If the lights were on, we were there. We did everything from children's church, sound, lighting, toilets, landscape. I'm serious. We did it all. Anything that was thrown out there, we need somebody for this. Okay, we'll sign up for that. Because we were just trying to serve, because that's what we were taught how to do.